the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network presents Vatican Insider with Joan Lewis. Each week, Joan brings you news from inside the Vatican and the Church around the world, as well as interviews and answers to your questions. Now, here's the host of Vatican Insider, Joan Lewis.
Welcome to a new edition of Vatican Insider. The news in a moment, but first I want to tell you that this week and next in the interview segment, I will re-air an interview I did with Father Hans Zollner, a German Jesuit theologian and psychologist, as his work is necessary to understanding an important event that took place in Rome this week. In 2012, he founded and was president of the Center for Child Protection at Rome's Jesuit-run Gregorian University. In April 2021, that became the Institute of Anthropology that he now directs. We talk about the Institute, the courses and degrees it offers, and how dioceses around the world are adopting similar programs. Fast forward to 2024. The Gregorian University annually holds what is known as the ISC, the International SafeGuarding Conference, sponsored by the Institute of Anthropology that Father Zollner founded. The 2024 conference, June 18 to 21, focused on safeguarding and disability, aiming at an approach that puts people with disabilities at the center of discussions. I felt it was important to re-air my interview with Father Zollner about the work of the Institute of Anthropology and these conferences. Now the week's news highlights. Sunday, June 16. Speaking after the Angelus, Pope Francis appealed for the safeguard of civilians in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where numerous attacks have taken place in past weeks. Painful news of clashes and massacres continues to arrive from the eastern part of the DRC. I appeal to the national authorities and to the international community to do everything possible to stop the violence and safeguard the lives of civilians. He noted that among the victims, many are Christians. Monday, June 17th and Tuesday, June 18th, the C9 Council of Cardinals met in the Vatican for its third meeting of 2024, following those of February and April. Pope Francis was present both days. The two-day work session of the Council focused on the role of women in the Church and on the issue of the protection of minors. 3 women were present at this meeting, a religious sister and 2 university professors. Wednesday, June 19th. As the Holy Father continued his catechesis series on the Holy Spirit, this week he reflected in a special way on the Psalms. With today's catechesis, he explained, I would like to recall that the Church already possesses a symphony of prayer, whose composer is the Holy Spirit, and this is the Book of Psalms. The Book of Psalms, like any symphony, he said, contains various movements, that is, various genres of prayer, praise, thanksgiving, supplication, lamentation, narration, reflection, and others, both in the personal form and in the choral form of the whole people. What most commends the Psalms to our attention is that they were the prayer of Jesus and Mary and the apostles and all the Christian generations that preceded us. In the middle of his Wednesday catechesis, Pope Francis laid aside his prepared remarks and spoke off the cuff, saying, I have on my desk a Ukrainian edition of the New Testament and the Psalms from a soldier who died in the war. He sent it to me and he prayed at the front with this book. The Pope was referring to 23-year-old Ukrainian soldier Alexander, whose rosary and Bible he received several months ago. In April he noted this, and he said Alexander had underlined Psalm 130, Out of the depths I cry to thee, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice. The Pope also spoke of the World Day of Refugees, to be celebrated the following day, June 20th. He urged compassion for all those who are forced to flee their homes in search of peace and security, and he called for better treatment of refugees. We are all called to welcome, promote, accompany, and integrate those who knock on our doors. I pray that states will strive to ensure humane conditions for refugees and to facilitate integration processes. The The papal message for this World Day was released on June 3rd. Thursday, June 20th, Pope Francis welcomed a delegation of leaders from the Lutheran World Federation, describing their visit as an important gesture of ecumenical fraternity. He pointed to the joint commemoration of the anniversary of the Council of Nicaea and to the joint declaration on justification as signs of hope on our common ecumenical journey. Also June 20th, Pope Francis addressed participants at the Second Conference of the Vatican Specula, the Vatican Observatory, as it focused on the theme of black holes, gravitational waves, and space-time singularities. Francis assured the scientists that the Church is attentive to such research and promotes it because it shakes the sensitivity and intelligence of the men and women of our time. He invited them to continue to confront each other in a loyal and humble spirit on the issues they are discussing. Also Thursday, Pope Francis dialogued with students in the Building Bridges Across Asia-Pacific initiative that was hosted by Loyola University Chicago, together with the Pontifical Commission for Latin America at the Holy See. Also assisting were other Vatican dicasteries. The synodal encounter between Pope Francis and university students brought together representatives from the Philippines, Australia, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, Indonesia, and students participating from Singapore, East Timor, and Papua New Guinea. Friday, June 21st. The Pope's agenda included several private audiences, as well as a meeting with the bishops of Guinea, who are in Rome on their ad limina visit. Well, those are the week's news highlights. Now, stay here for my talk with Father Hans Zollner. Have a great weekend and stay cool.
This is Father Dwight Longenecker. Why do you need to go to confession? Well, it's easy to receive forgiveness for the things we've done wrong, but more importantly than that, one of the beauties of confession is that when we go to confession, we take responsibility for ourselves. Our world is besieged by those who feel entitled and want to blame others and expect others to do everything for them. When we go to confession, by God's help, we're saying, it's my job, it's my responsibility, I'm going to get on and do what I can to change myself and change the world with God's help.
From Rome to your home, EWTN's Vatican Bureau lets you watch all of the important events from Rome, even if you don't have a TV. Using the latest technology, we've made it possible to watch the latest news from the Holy See, all delivered directly to your home. Watch live on EWTN YouTube and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. EWTN is the Global Catholic Network.
This is a Messy Family Minute from Mike and Alicia Hernan. When we see how crazy this world is, we can be tempted to isolate our family on a desert island and leave it all behind. Well, that's not really practical, but one thing you can do is take your family away on your very own family retreat. The goal of this retreat is for growth in your family identity and relationships, and to give you time to intentionally pray together as a family unit.
The 4 parts of the family retreat are family bonding activities, prayer, teaching, and fun. We've learned that if you're going to pray with your children, you also need to play with them. When parents develop these 4 aspects of their weekend away with their kids, the results are amazing. Devoting time to your family has a lasting impact on your kids, especially if you make it a tradition every year.
To enable more families to do a family retreat, we have put together a short guide to help lead moms and dads through their own retreat planning process. To access this free download, visit us at messyfamilyminute.org.
Welcome back to Vatican Insider. Here's Joan Lewis.
In 2012, Father Hans Zollner, a German Jesuit theologian and psychologist, founded and was president of the Center for Child Protection at Rome's Jesuit-run Gregorian University. In April 2021, that became the Institute of Anthropology that he now directs. In my interview with him, we talk about the Institute, the courses and degrees it offers, and how dioceses around the world are adopting similar programs. The Gregorian University annually holds what is known as the ISC, the International SafeGuarding Conference, sponsored by the Institute of Anthropology that Father Zollner founded. The 2024 conference, June 18 to 21, focused on safeguarding and disability, aiming at an approach that puts people with disabilities at the center of discussions. In view of that conference, I felt it could be important to re-air my interview with Father Zollner and thus learn about the Institute of Anthropology. I want to welcome my listeners to another great edition of Vatican Insider with a real special guest this weekend, and that's Father Hans Zollner. Now, he's a German Jesuit, a theologian, and a psychologist, and he's founder of the Institute of Anthropology, Interdisciplinary Studies on Human Dignity and Care. And that's going to be called the Institute from now on in the interview. And he directs that, founded it, and directs it. And Father's a licensed psychotherapist and regarded as one of the leading ecclesiastical experts in the field of safeguarding from sexual abuse, especially, of course, in the Catholic Church. So, Father Hans, welcome to Vatican Insider.
Thank you very much.
You know, it's very exciting to be here, and I'm in the administrative offices of the Institute. The actual classrooms, which we'll talk about in a minute, are at the Gregorian University. Now, just a little background about Father to understand where he's coming from and more about the Institute. He has a doctorate in theology from the University of Innsbruck. He got a licentiate in psychology at the Institute of Psychology at Rome's Pontifical Gregorian University. That's a Jesuit university. And then in 2012, at the Greg, you founded and was president of the Center for Child Protection, the CCP. And then in April, just last year, that became the Institute of Anthropology, etc., which we spoke of a minute ago. But Father, tell us about yourself and your path to Rome, how you were directed to your studies, and eventually here in Rome.
Yeah, I grew up in Regensburg, in the center of Bavaria, in the south of Germany, the city where Pope Benedict was professor of theology.
I love Regensburg.
Oh, yes, it is a beautiful city. Of course, I studied there when he had already been appointed to be the Archbishop of Munich and then later became the prefect of the Congregation for Doctrine.
Right.
However, after high school, I entered the seminary of my home diocese as a seminarian, but soon discovered that I would rather not be a diocesan priest, but religious. So I discovered Ignatian Jesuit spirituality, discovered the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius, and after my studies in philosophy and theology, I entered the Jesuits in southern Germany. And then I worked, after novitiate, I worked in the University Chaplaincy of Munich, State University, and discovered my interest in accompanying people. So my provincial of that time and myself, we decided that it would be good that I study psychology. So I was missioned here to do the training in academic psychology and the psychotherapeutic training from 1994 to 97. And then I was chaplain again at a high school in a boarding school of the Jesuits in southern Germany. But then the Institute of Psychology requested my presence here for teaching, and that's why I came back to Rome in 2003, and since then I have been teaching at the Gregorian University, first in psychology and since 2 years now in the Institute of Anthropology, which we also call the SafeGuarding Institute.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yes, we have a shortcut for that long name. That is
because your initials are IADC, but then if somebody says, what does that mean?
Right.
You have to go into the whole title.
Exactly.
So the SafeGuarding Institute.
The SafeGuarding Institute.
Another title. Well, I have to say, when I started working at the Vatican many years ago, I wanted to improve my knowledge of many subjects, and I enlisted in a few courses at the Greg, and also, pardon me, but at the Angelicum I studied canon law. Well, Father Joe Fox, an American, was teaching.
You are forgiven for that.
Yes, thank you. He was teaching canon law. So but I wanted to broaden my knowledge of biblical studies. I had to learn Spanish. We were going to be using Spanish in our office. But I didn't know till recently that there was psychology that was being taught at the Greg. That's absolutely fascinating.
Especially, the Institute was established after the vocational crisis following immediately on Vatican Council II period, the two Italian Jesuits who founded the Institute at the beginning of the 1970s had their degrees from the University of Chicago.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, one was a medical doctor and the other was a philosopher, but both trained also as psychologists and psychotherapists in Chicago. And
I'm a Chicago girl.
Yeah, very good. And they came back with a research on the motivations on a conscious and an unconscious level that brings people to choose a religious vocation or to enter the seminary, and why they leave that vocation. And that research, original research, got the European Prize of the Society for Psychology of Religion. So it was a really high mark in the scientific research community. And the speciality of this institute till now is that it's, as I said, a combination of academics and of the practical, the professional formation of psychotherapists, meant to intervene in seminary formation and in religious formation, which means the formation and education of young religious, male and female. And that is what the work has been for more than 50 years now.
That's fascinating. I did not know that history. I was aware a little bit of the history, of course, of the Institute, that the Center for Child Protection, and assisted a number of times at press conferences at the Greg and that work, and which became a really big thing, I think, after 2002, when it was revealed, starting with the Archdiocese of Boston in the U.S., so many cases coming forward in the U.S., and then all the cardinals were called to Rome by Pope John Paul at the time. And then people began in other countries to look into possible clerical sex abuse. And there was the need for a body in Vatican City, which we have with Cardinal Sean O'Malley at its head. And then obviously the Center for Protecting Children, and now the Institute. And in the center, your focus was providing internet-based training for Catholics anywhere in the world on the protection of children from sexual abuse. So now you've established the Institute, that was last year, of Anthropology. And what is the most significant aspect of such a change, going from the Center for Child Protection to this Institute and its degrees, etc.?
There are two sides to that. One is center to institute, and the other side is from child protection to dignity, human dignity and care of vulnerable people. The first part is very easily explained by the need to find a structure within the university that gives, let me say, that allows for a full-fledged institute to flourish in terms of awarding its own degrees, academic degrees, and giving the possibility to the faculty to develop their own academic careers, which was not the case with a center. In our structure, a center doesn't have its own faculty and can't award its own degrees. So that was one, let me say, academic upgrade that we have received, and which puts us in the same position like other institutes, and to some extent also of the faculties of the university.
Sure.
The second point is much more important in the sense that 10, 11 years back, when we started with the Center for Child Protection, everybody was focusing mainly on the abuse that had been committed against minors of age, and everything was seen in psychological, psychiatric, or legal and canonical terms. Mm-hmm. That has changed over time, not least because of developments that took place in the United States, like the Me Too movement in 2017, and the case of the former Cardinal McCarrick, and the abuse of seminarians that came to the spotlight. And then Pope Francis himself put another point on the agenda, that is the abuse of religious women by clergy in some parts of the world. So we have we have seen an expansion of the field and of all those topics that we need to address when it comes to sexual abuse, psychological abuse, physical abuse, or the abuse of power in general. So we needed to broaden, in any case, our perspective. We could not stay only focused on child protection.
Sure.
Although, of course, that remains a priority within our work for the blended learning, the e-learning programs, as well as the residential programs. So child protection, of course, is one of our main focuses, but it can't be the only one. So we need also to talk about the protection of vulnerable persons.
Yes, because a lot of people weren't thinking of the adult level where there could be so much abuse. You know, I had a conversation with a theologian friend about the Institute. And the question came up that since having an anthropology presumes having a vision of man that is unified and systematic, how does the Church, which seeks to integrate philosophical, theological, and scientific views in a harmonious way, how does the Church deal with a hostile, secular anthropology that's ever more materialistic and individualistic, as if human nature had no reality except that which the individual or the culture determines?
Now, of course, we are a Catholic university, we are a pontifical university, and we stand on the grounds of Christian and Catholic anthropology, which means that we consider everything that has been said alongside the theological development over the centuries by the magisterium, so by the ecclesiastical and the pontifical doctrine that has been promulgated and has been published. So for us, of course, this is the basis. And the more we can also reasonably explain what that means and how an integrated view, for example, of human sexuality, an integrated view and a respectful view of human relationships, of keeping the proper boundaries, helps us to live out our human life, let alone our Christian life, will make us more credible within modern society. And I believe that many people see of late that there are things in the public discussion that bring us to the point of really looking for an orientation. So we need to research, we need to explain ourselves, we need to find a language that is understandable. We cannot pretend that people understand our traditional language, because many people don't have any access to that anymore, and they don't have any knowledge about what certain words that we use normally and regularly mean. So we need also to find a way to explain it for today's society, and for the people who are looking for an orientation and for some guidance, that they can rely on what within the Bible and in Catholic tradition is valuable for that purpose. Exactly.
Now, the university's website, when the university went and announced the new institute, it said, "With this institute, the Pontifical Gregorian University reiterates and intensifies its commitment to the work of protecting minors and vulnerable people," as you just explained, "and supporting safe environments that promote respect for human dignity. At the same time," said the website, "this conversion will deepen the interdisciplinary dimension of education and research," and that sounds like what you were just referring to, as well as, of course, addressing issues surrounding abuse and prevention.
Yeah, I mean, the Gregorian University, since 2011, 2012, when we started with the Center for Child Protection, has taken a lead in this, and I'm very happy that the university leadership over the years have stood very firm in this commitment.
Indeed.
And has given us the possibility to work, and then now also to expand that work. We have had, in our university, we have had, of course, a lot of activities, a lot of events, international events, like the first one, the 2012 symposium towards Healing and Renewal that started, let me say, a new era of taking note of what has happened in the past, and also laid the groundwork for an international, truly Catholic commitment to safeguarding measures. That was at the same time basically when the Center for Child Protection initiated its activities in the training. As an academic institution, of course, we believe that education, formation, training, and coming to research is centerpiece of what we need to do as an academic institution to equip people to do the best so that the church becomes a safer place for young people and for all people, actually. And the university has also hosted, for example, in 2017, an event that, from my point of view, was quite important under the title Child Dignity in the Digital World.
Oh, yes.
Because I believe that the digital world, with all its pros and cons, is the space of most risk for young people today in terms of all kinds of bullying, mobbing, and all kinds of sexual interaction among youth, and surely also among adults, with adults and youth.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it can be so poisonous at times, and things can even just pop up on your screen that you haven't asked for or haven't been researching, and especially with a younger generation, an open mind, a questioning mind, they can be really taken off track. That's all the time I have this week with Jesuit Father Hans Zollner. But come back next weekend to hear more from the founder of the Gregorian University's Institute of Anthropology and Interdisciplinary Studies on Human Dignity and Care, also known as the SafeGuarding Institute.
For more information on these stories, or to check out Joan's blog and to ask her a question, go to EWTN.com. That's EWTN.com. Thanks for listening to Vatican Insider on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.